Okay, welcome, Aly Ux. I'm so excited to have you today. It's my dear friend Ali, who is also a coach and an incubator graduate, CoCreative Sex Incubator Graduate. So I wanted to have him on the show today on the co-create on the podcast series of the Co-Creative Sex Dialogues because it's just really fun to have conversations with real people out there. We're all dealing with sex in different ways, in different fashions, and we have access to different communities and what we're all dealing with. So I'm just very excited to hear what Ali's journey was about. And also, what's really great is just watching Ali throughout the whole incubator process really come alive with this amazing talent of spoken word. Like, I would love to describe to you how I got to see him reveal one of probably his most amazing talents. He can just like open up his antenna basically and tap into this creative flow of words and rhythm, and it just comes alive. And it taps into such profound and poetic things that just like I just blew my mind. I'm like, this guy is a poet in the modern, spoken word fashion. So he's gonna actually be sharing some of his pieces with us, maybe towards the end of our little conversation. So stay tuned for the pearls. So Ali, you came into our incubator. You really resonated with this question of like, taking on sex and intimacy as a conversation, as something that was important in the world. Why was this important for you?
It's just part of my personal development. I've always taken on a course or some kind of personal development program, and every year it just became a thing for me. And I was funny enough, I was just dealing with questions that I had in mind in regards to my sexuality, which to me, I've kind of like suppressed or put aside. And because I just made them, dramatic in my head, and oh my gosh, they're so scary. And your course shows up in my life, and I get like a light bulb. I'm like, oh man. And also like, oh, and yes, I have to face whatever I'm thinking about. And yes, this is it. Like this is what, my opportunity to take on. So yeah.
Right. So on a first level, like what do you think like the people in your community, like the people that you have access to, what are they dealing with around sex?
I think from a man, I'm going to speak on my perspective, and I'm sure every time I share something, someone resonates with it.
Yeah.
So, sex for me was something that was hidden. It's never really talked about. You do have sex, and that's all there is to it. It's hush hush, quiet, quiet, and everything should be good. And we don't talk about any problems or any issues around sex. And that's what it was like before, if I go like way back, years back. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And so do you feel like, so it's hush hush, so you don't really even know what people are dealing with, basically?
Well, yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't necessarily like to use the word, but it could be something embarrassing for some people, or there's some kind of, story around shame attached around it, or this is not what we talk about. It could be, cultural values, religious traditions, or other, or just,
Hmm.
people not necessarily wanting to go there because it might not be accepted very much. What if you share something and, someone makes fun of you, or, it could have implications in society that would affect, your career, or, your family, or just your overall, well-being. At least that's the story that was created around
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
And we sort of see like, yeah, it's such a sensitive topic that people can create, projections on you. There could be, stories and humiliation. We can see online how things can go wild, go wild online with different, revelations or and yeah, there's something that doesn't feel safe to totally talk about sexuality, like what are people going to think of me, etc. So there's a kind of like this feeling of there's something hidden and it's not completely safe to talk about. And how about for you, like what can you share about like the certain things that, I don't know if you feel more comfortable now to flagging some of those things in your life after doing the incubators? There's some things that you feel like, yeah, I was kind of dealing with this, and I'm open to talk about it. And if you're not, that's fine too.
Well, Julie, it takes something to be here, and just me being on the podcast now, it takes me something. Like I called my mom, and not just because I was excited to be on a podcast, because this topic is very sensitive, in my environment, for me, at least in my head. And it's not like my family never talked about sex. My dad sat me down and explained to me. I remember it was funny. Like I told him a joke, that about the birds and the bees, about sex, and I had no idea what it meant. And I told him the joke, and I laughed. And he looked at me. He's like, "Did you know what that meant?" And I was like, "No, it's funny. It's a joke." And then this is when the conversation started. And yeah, so it's uncomfortable to some extent being here, but sometimes it takes discomfort to evolve. So I don't know if I'm going to share everything. I want to share, but overall, I would say I'm trying to decide whether to share or not. But I'll keep it as is for now. It's nothing too drastic, but it's just like not comfortable yet.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing is that there's like something, and that's where we sort of see how sexual identities and our sexual expression is so important, because it just feels like such a part of our self-expression and who we are, and yet there's so much fear about how people will perceive us, or how we're going to be understood, and or misunderstood or misconstrued. And so yeah, there's this kind of stakes that are pretty high up, right? So yeah, so it just goes to show the importance of going in there and maybe stretching boundaries a little bit, stretching people's comfort around the conversation, so that it becomes more and more something that we feel that is normal. The more that we experience other people talking about it, the more it's like, oh, well, this is a conversation that's so intimately connected to how I express my energy in the world. And yet, if I can't express it, then it's kind of, suffocating. And I think one of the stories that I collected from my book, Sex Up Your Life, that was the most moving for me was actually Hasina Juma's story. That was, she was in a religious community, where being bisexual was not acceptable. And throughout the interview, having this conversation with her was so powerful, because it really took her something. She really wanted to suppress like her identity and her who she was, but at the same time she knew that like the more that she was suppressing it, the more that she felt ill, the more she felt like she was being silenced and invisible. And so it really took something for her to step up and share who she was really with her community. So I think, and it doesn't have to necessarily be sexual orientation, but it could be your preferences. It could be how you want to experience and what you love, so it's really something that it really takes something. So thank you for having the courage of even showing up, right?
Yeah, I can definitely share. Now that I think about it, you know what? The reason I'm here is, to really stretch out and extend myself as a person, and not necessarily hide that, because when you said there's an impact when you suppress it. And actually the reason that I'm here is to invite others to really open up about, who they really are, because that's going to help all of us. There's not going to be any more shame or discouragement. So yeah, I'll definitely share. So do we have time for me to share? I'll make it.
Go for it. Yeah.
Right.
That's what we're here
for. So, okay. So before the incubator, I've often, like, I've had thoughts, where like every now and then, let's say I'd see, okay, this is very out of my comfort zone, so give me a minute. And first time on a podcast. Okay. So I had thoughts of male organs in my head, like if every now and then, if in a sexual interaction, and it didn't happen so often, it just happened every now and then, but whenever it came up, I made a big deal out of it. So coming in a cultural background that was not necessarily accepting of that environment, at least, or how I was, at least, I'm not going to blame my cultural environment, but myself, and then being okay with it, and then realizing, oh my gosh, am I gay for thinking of a male thing while I'm in a sexual scenario in my head. And it was awesome, because I got present to the idea that it's completely okay whatever thoughts you have. It doesn't make you something. But I've kept it so much in my head that I made a lot of stories around it, and I over dramatized it, while realizing, while or during the incubator, that it's okay to have thoughts like that. It doesn't necessarily mean you're anything, and even if you are, of course, it's fine. But from someone from my cultural background, or from my history, or my mental state at least, it was very challenging to deal with, and I was ashamed to share it too, because I didn't want to come off like homophobic or anything like that, because I knew deep down inside, like, that's not who I am. But it was hard to put into perspective. And fortunately, I was able to, take some time and talk to people, share some of the creative work in the incubator, and which allowed me to really like express that part of me without adding any shame to it or embarrassment. And I have no idea what I said, so I hope this comes out great. I'm so nervous.
Sounds really great. Like, I will reflect back to you what you just shared. Like, it's basically that, it's actually really profound what you said. You said basically, like, in the past, you had these different visions in your head sometimes, and you would put a lot of stories attached to it, almost like made it really big, and maybe attach shame to it. And when you came into the incubator, you start realizing, like, you can give voice to different parts of yourself just as a self-expression piece, without attaching it with all these different stories. And you were even able to take some of your pieces after and share them with the people in your environment, and realize, like, this is just part of my experience and my expression. It doesn't have to become this huge thing. I don't have to put a label on myself. I don't have to put myself in a box. It's just like, these are just things that are,
exactly,
going on.
100%, exactly. It really gave me peace of mind and creativity and fun, and just, I like having fun. So yeah.
Exactly. Well, I really love it. So yeah, maybe, like, as we're on this topic of like self-expression, I think oftentimes we undervalue how important self-expression actually is in our healing process, in becoming completely in alignment with who we are. We sort of think, oh, I have to heal my heartache, or I have to heal this or that. Maybe, you're carrying some shame in your body, but no, like, actually the medicine of speaking some truths that are living inside us is so cathartic, right? So yeah, I would love you to share with us a little bit about that creative process that we went into, that allowed you access to these different parts of yourself that maybe normally you wouldn't talk about, but like the way we were doing it was allowing you this kind of freedom. So just, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So before the incubator, I would have thoughts around, I would have anxiety around anything like world events related. So growing up in my environment, it was not really okay to have like a strong political opinion, or, oppose anything. And I was okay with that. Like, we just lived happy and safely, and everything's cool. And that's fine. But it's not so much having a political opinion. It's just like, for me, as I was told at some point that I'm a highly sensitive person. So anything external, anything news or world related can create a lot of anxiety and stress for me. And I kept that just completely like on the down low, didn't talk about it. I don't want to show my weakness. I don't want to show that I have this stuff. I'm normal. I'm cool. I can handle anything. I'm a guy. I'm a man. But during the incubator, what happened was, in a few months ago in Lebanon, there was like, the explosion that was on like Instagram was crazy. It was horrific. Just the video, like, just watching that video destroyed my senses and emotions. It was very shocking to my system. And it's not the first time I feel like that when I watch, something crazy in the news. And it just became very, I don't know what happened exactly, but I just decided to just write it down, just write and express things. And just out of the work with you in the incubator of creating words and playing with words, I was able to take all my sentiments and emotions and thoughts, and I just put them down. And then I started remembering my dad talking about Lebanon. Like, for some reason, I had this story of my dad speaking like highly of Lebanon, how awesome it is, and the fruits and the river and the people. And it just came at this point and like perfect timing for me to express it in words. And I never thought I would express that thought to anyone. Mm-hmm. So thank you, Julie, for that, because just this write-up that I created such a stress relief for me, because for so many years I'm like suppressing myself, not wanting to talk about anything politics or share it, because I don't want any trouble or problems, but just to not make a big deal out of it and just have fun with it and play around with words. And I remember posting it on my Instagram, and I like after I posted it, my heart was beating, I don't know, like a million miles, a minute, a million beats a minute, and it was very intense. It was a very intense experience for me. So that's something that kind of like I kind of suppressed, and through this work, I was able to express, and which resulted in like more peace of mind and me being okay with it, and not making a big deal out of things.
Well, I think this is a great example. Like we're going kind of in the political sphere, but it's sort of it's a metaphor for anything else that we experience, right? And basically, what I'm hearing too is that like there's this whole process of not just talking about the facts and being angry or whatever about it, but it's like allowing almost a soulscape to be in like this kind of experience can be embedded in the soulscape, So there's this fruit and there's the sounds and there's the smells and there's this poetic experience that you receive as a child that you can address, and at the same time this clash with this political thing going on. So it's almost like it opens up this realm that we don't usually give ourselves permission to experience. Like it's all the senses that are allowed to express themselves, all the different experience and layers inside ourselves. Instead of just being, just bam, 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 like, or complaining or this or that, we get a chance to bring in this artfulness into a daily historical, experience, So that's a great example. And yeah, and like when I was watching you through the incubator, we would do some exercises and sort of like some things that we sort of would tap into, like, stream of consciousness and allow things to come in. And, I'd give little like, spurs of like words to get people triggered and, mess things up a little bit with our linear thinking. But you would come out of these 5-minute like little exercises and have these masterpieces, and you would access like the shadow part of yourself and the light part of yourself, and you knew how to mix those together so well, and these opposites like sort of hitting each other, and it would create this really sassy, awesome piece. And I remember you once like even telling me once, like, Julie, can I share this one? Because it was like really edgy. And I was like, go for it. And you were like, oh my God. And so I think, it's kind of really cool to see how words can allow for like this almost like physiological response to things, and almost like a liberation of something. So I wonder if there's something you could speak to about that.
Oh, I'd love to. For the longest time, I felt like I have female energy. I related to a lot of females in how, they moved, they spoke, they thought. It was just not spoken thought, but like at least the things that I've observed. And for the first time ever, I owned it. And there was nothing wrong with it. My manhood and manliness is there. It doesn't take away any of it. In contrary, it's actually an addition, a bonus to have that. It's really is a superpower. So, and I owned it and I expressed it in words, and it was freeing. It was really, really, really freeing. Freeing as F, as they would say. I'm not gonna share the stuff that I wrote, but I remember that I got so excited. It was late at night, and I was just sitting down next to my girlfriend in bed. I'm like writing it down, and I'm like, I'm gonna share it. And it was one of those other like completely out of my comfort zone moments. So
what I love is like you have like this comfort zone, and you're willing to push yourself out of your comfort zone and be like, okay, I jump. And it's like that feeling of jumping off that cliff and being like, oh my God. But it like every time you would do it, your energy would be like, like sort of enlightened, like almost like this light bolt would go through you and like just like give you this jolt of energy, and giving you life, really. Like it would awaken you, right? So, through this whole process, there's like 12 weeks, there's different themes. We go into all kinds of things. What were some of the themes that were really interesting to you and that really made a difference for you?
Well, all of them. I mean, really all of them. Like every chapter that I read, that I wrote about, like went through the questions, some of the questions at the end of the chapter. Just opened my mind to something completely different. And coincidentally, every chapter, aligned with something that happened in my life that week that somewhat resembled what was going on in the chapter, which was freaky in a way, positive freaky, not bad freaky.
I love the
And I
magic
love
of
that.
the universe, right?
The what?
That's when
Sorry.
I love the magic of the universe. That's when you know you're like on this like wave,
Exactly.
and you're just like in the flow of like this kind of school of the universe, surfing
It's awesome.
it.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, can you give us a little example of one that was really helpful for you?
Let's see. I did not prepare. So which one? Okay, let's see. Another one that was helpful for me. I'm trying to think. Okay, what comes to mind is the topic of sex work. That was interesting because like I grew up like sex work or anything that, anyone that participated in sex work, it's like extreme shame and taboo and horrific. And it wasn't until like probably 10 or 15 years ago, I was doing photography at the time, and I was going around taking pictures of houses for real estate agents back in Montreal, and I would have the radio on. And I remember listening to like CBC or something, and they interviewed a lawyer or someone who was, kind of like standing up for sex workers as perhaps a trade, and it's the oldest trade apparently, or like one of the oldest trades in existence that we know of. And they were sharing how a lot of, I mean, of course there's a lot of negatives around it now, that we create and as a stereotype, but there's also some truth to it. There's something there, and for the security and safety and protection of to be actually reduce crime, it'll be good to like make it official and have a system around that, an official structure that would be managed by whoever manages it, like a social structure basically that's accepted by everyone and organized. So that opened my mind. That radio interview opened my mind on that topic. But then it's not important to me. It's not high priority. So I just shelved it. And in your book, when I read what you shared in regards to the stories of people using sex work as a way to heal, that just blew my mind, because I had it in the back of my head that there's a possibility that something positive could come out of this. It's it's not by coincidence that it's like the oldest trade in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it connected the dots for me, and I was like, wow, I should
Mm-hmm.
trust myself more if I have thoughts or ideas that seem unconventional. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And like even the concept, right, that you can heal through sexuality. Like that is novel for a lot of people, that sex can actually be a healing force. And if you become like someone that's really well versed in how to, guide that for someone, or help someone connect to parts of themselves that are disconnected, you can actually allow them to have a lot of healing. So yet then someone can become an expert of that. So of course if you become an expert of guiding these experiences, of course you also have to be paid for it. Right?
Makes sense. I mean, it just going through the chapter and just being open in the group, in the incubator, and being open with my girlfriend. I remember sharing the thoughts that I shared earlier on this call and with her, and we had a discussion about it, because I thought that if I shared anything in regards to that with her, the relationship is done, and she might label me as, put a label on me, and everyone else would know Ali is this label, but I'm actually not that at all. And it's just the risk of being misunderstood, but still putting myself out there. And after having the conversation with her, it was amazing. It was really like empowering. It was uplifting. She started, questioning her, sexual styles and preferences and everything around that. And it was like freedom and peace of mind within the relationship. I wasn't, hiding or withholding anything from her, which was really freeing. It was really cool. So it actually brought us closer together. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like, having the courage to go into some of these conversations, whether it be around a theme, it could be around porn, it could be around, it could be around, I don't know, the ways we protect our heart. It could be, the traumas that are coming up as we have sex and the energy moves through us and we're like, shit, like this person's withdrawing from me and I'm feeling all guarded and getting angry. And then there's just like, there's all kinds of opportunities to actually have real conversations on all these themes, because they do make a difference in relationships, right? So just having these different themes each week, it's sort of like I heard it from a lot of people in the incubator this time around where they were going off and like having conversations with their different partners or like taking out something they had never said in 18 years or something like that. It's like it's kind of helps to find those little spaces where we might not be, not addressing them, and we sort of live like with this big rock kind of like in our hip, and we're just like pretending the rock's not there, and like this is an opportunity, like, oh yeah, here's the rock. Look at fancy, let's talk about the rock that's there. So yeah, so that's really cool. Okay, well, um is there any big ahas that went like that you had through the process, like that you want to share with people, that like, wow, like that was, it blew your mind kind of thing?
I can write and I can perform.
Yes.
That just, yeah, that's if anyone would ask me any question in regards to the incubator or what they would get out of it, that, I mean, if you put yourself, through the work, you will definitely get that. And it's phenomenal. It's so freeing and uplifting. And it's awesome to have something to express yourself with. It's awesome to have art and be able to create. And to be able to create and heal, like, I mean, what else would anyone want? This is so cool. For me, this is just fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love how you put those two together, like how creation and healing go so well together. And if we look at like the force of creativity and sexuality, like they're both very quickening. It's a quickening energy, right? So like when you have a piece and you create and there's this kind of life-giving force to you and you share it with someone, there's a kind of like feeling of like, you're alive,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and at the same time going into zones that are so full of fault lines and so full of feelings and emotions, and like going and playing in there, but doing it with art, doing it with like imagery, and giving it another form than just be like, poor me, I had this happen to me, or it's like a kind of like you play with it in this whole new way, and it kind of allows us to think of it differently, right?
What I'm hearing is that gives you a little bit more control and
Yeah, you're not
fun.
really the
Yeah.
victim as much. You're like, because you can take a piece and make it into art. So then you become the creator of this piece of art, no matter what the experience or whatever you're talking about, So it's you're in a different position towards all the things that are there inside of you, and you're giving them voice, so they don't get stuck there anymore. They get to move, So there's this whole healing with creation that happens, right?
It's
And
really powerful. Yeah.
like you say, like it allows, like the way we work in the incubator, we're going into some of the biggest taboos and the biggest themes and the biggest things that impact us in our lives, like whether it's the heart or the power or the voice, like to be able to address these things is, um, it just allows for such profound work, because it's going to
Yeah.
the center of what's important.
It's beyond courageous. I mean, everyone that has joined the incubator or was with me, I have a lot of respect and admiration for them. It really takes something to go deep, to travel deep into yourself and share it with other people. So it's double courage. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, do you want to share something about that whole piece about being visible? Like, I think we don't understand that concept as being super important, but we don't realize how much we're used to hiding in our lives,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about that getting in the court business and the visibility. Like, how did you experience that?
Well, for me, I've done, again, like, we've met through a personal development program. I've done so many personal development programs, and it's just consistent, out of your comfort zone, sharing, being vulnerable, really putting it to work. So it's wasn't that hard initially, like coming in, I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. But then when you start to see the things that you wrote and all the judgments come jumping in and, build a wall, and you're like, there's no way in hell I'm gonna, share any of this stuff. And you can see it in the incubator. People are like, I don't know, not sure. Yeah. But it takes one or two people to like get the ball rolling. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's just get it out there one step at a time. And I did that. And it's awesome because humans, when things evokes emotion, it just creates a domino effect. And that was that. It's just like when you speak your truth, it resonates with someone else. They speak their truth, and it just like it starts. And that was my process. So really like trying to lead by being super vulnerable, and also taking on, other people's leadership. For example, I remember reading some of the posts on, from the previous incubatees on your Facebook group before starting. And that gave me courage. And I reached out to them, and I, kind of like shared my self-expression. So really thanks to them as well. They kind of led the way for me to
Cool.
be comfortable sharing. Yeah.
That's awesome to hear that actually. Like that makes a difference because we have a Facebook group and then people can share their pieces and then it creates a community of creatives sharing their work and their deep soul processes, right? So it's a
Yeah.
very profound experience really. So thank you for sharing that in such an evocative, powerful way.
You're
Um,
welcome.
okay, so let me think here. Is there any other questions I want to ask you? Well, I sort of feel like it's time to listen to some of your pieces. Like, I think that's where we're at.
Totally. I'll share the Lebanon one. And one more reason is that through reading the book, I realized that I have, like what I experienced symptoms of PTSD, and that's through one of the chapters. And I wanted to mention that as well, so I know, because I think it's very important. And so the Lebanon piece also like helped me kind of like heal from like what would be symptoms of like PTSD or anxiety and trauma. So I'm gonna
Let me
do
share.
the Lebanon one.
I felt that.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I'll do that one. Yeah, that's the one I'd like to do. I'm most proud of it because it's just self-expressed and it's cool. Yeah. Okay. So I guess there's no title really, but I just call it the Lebanon piece. So Lebanon. My dad talked about you. The river flowing, he said. Fresh fruits floating in the cold river water, he said. You pick it up and eat it, he said. Vivid imagery of lush mountains, happy people, clean air, and fresh fruits. That's what I pictured. Left a mark on my mind like silk fabric floating in the wind. Now the wind gusted. People are gone. Why? For who? For what? Why? Sharp glass shatters. It feels like that. It feels like that. Not just for Lebanon. Planet Earth, I urge you to heal your trauma. I beg you to forgive yourself and others. Let go of your pain. Let go of your drama. Let go of your urge to devour another human being.
Amazing. I really love that one. I remember we were a few of us. Um, man, I forget the name of that amazing Lebanese poet, sort of filmmaker, but theater guy. Oh my God. I'll think about it and post it in the feed later. But he's one of my favorite sort of like like theater guys, and he just does these
Nice.
amazing pieces, and it totally brings me there, you know?
Wow. I love hearing that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Cool.
So we of course want some more. We can't just leave you on that. You have to bring us a little bit deeper.
One more. I'm not gonna. There's a lot of very deep one, of course, as you know, and I'm not gonna share them here. But if people want to see them, if they join the incubator, I think I've shared some stuff in there. But I'd love to share one more. It's called "So Good." Cool. All right. So good. Bodies clashing. We're into this. She's on her back. I'm in full control. Am I listening to her subconscious, or is she finding pleasure in how I'm dancing with her energy? I'm dancing with her energy. Like I said, bodies clashing. That's it. On my back, riding my own wave. Groovy, baby. I found the key to my superpower, my self-pleasure power. That's it.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it might
Wow.
not mean so much to people, but like this, it was just kind of cool to like, for me, like just to play on words. Like you just see how excited I am about just being. I was never like that before, so it's cool. Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you could share one of your drip poems.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I do have one. Yeah. Okay.
So
I
just
kind of knew it.
explain a little bit, like so basically we're on a theme and I'll bring in words that just
Yeah.
gets them like surprised and they have to work with these different themes, but the words also have to be incorporated in their text. So they kind of have to be on their feet when they're writing this.
This is amazing. Yeah, like this one's cool because Julie just kind of like throws words at you in like a time sequence, and you just got to create as you go. And this is an example of that. Yeah. Okay. So drip poem. Here we go. Open up your container of pleasure. Show it to her. You can use your cell phones to connect with other couples. It's scary if one of us starts texting the other partner in that couple. Heartbeat is what I value most. Fucking is momentary. Doorknob, I don't want to be. Emotional, vibrant, alive is where I thrive. Body shame has no more place in my heart. I love me so much. Bonnie and Clyde, we're enjoying life together. I love fat so much. Isn't fat great? When you really think about it, fat is awesome. Strawberry fields, roses blooming, peaches and mango cream, yummy. Whip me up like a helicopter. Vase is not broken. No such thing. It is never broken. It is in pieces. Broken Ford, I meant fjord. Hey, focus. Trash talk, walk, stalk, body sweat, nervous now. Wait, what? That's what's up. Ew, boom shakalak. Skin deep in the game. Erotic play, foreplay, aging into an abyss, putting my running shoe on cause I got this game.
That is so wicked. And I have this strong urge to say, everyone who's listening and who will listen in the future, please write in the post that you want Ali to like do more spoken word, because he's got this major talent with like rhythm and performance. And I think he could just even, this is just the tip of the iceberg, Ali. Like, this is just the beginning of what you can do with your words and your sass, you know? And I'm so excited to see how you can like even continue this to another level. Are you willing to take that on?
Well, I'm looking forward to the graduate program. Yeah. Like how I just put it back.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. And we're sort of like actually brewing with another old incubie actually, to create also some embodiment practices as we're doing the graduate program too. So it's gonna be this whole new level. So we're really excited about that. Anyways, you got some secret information. Okay, well, Ali, you were awesome. And thank you for stepping up here, showing yourself vulnerably and real and raw in front of everyone, and just sharing your heart about the real things that, you know, are moving inside of you, and taking a stand to create more space around this conversation with sexuality, even if it feels at times really not safe in how you grew up or the environment or the mindset that you grew up in. So that really took something for you today to come on this call and share with us on a Facebook Live. So everyone who wants to encourage Ali for his courage, just leave a little note for us. Say how much you love him and how great he is for showing up and being himself and sharing his talent, his amazing talent.
You're awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Yeah. So big hugs to everyone, and thanks for tuning in. And we'll have some more of these because they're just so fun to do. So any last words, Mr. Ali?
Thank you, everyone. Have an awesome night.
Hasta luego.